Now that Robert Mueller's Russia probe is in the rearview mirror, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham is among those calling for a full accounting of the bias and conspiracy at the top of the FBI and Justice Department to keep then-candidate Trump out of the White House.
What makes no sense to me is all the abuse by the Department of Justice and the FBI, the unprofessional conduct, the shady behavior. Nobody seems to think that's much important. Well, that's going to change.
Senator Graham then responded to a somewhat cryptic tweet seen here from fired FBI Director Jim Comey, in which Comey said, quote, "So many questions." Well, Graham shot back, "Could not agree more. See you soon." So what happens now? Let's ask my next guest, House Oversight Committee member, South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman. What does happen now with regard to what Lindsey Graham was saying? Do we have a Senate investigation? Because it'd be unlikely that Nancy Pelosi in the House would order one.
No, she wouldn't. And, you know, it's a sad day because it ought to be a great day in America. Great day for the president, and to drag the country through another what we've just been through of 2 years is unfair. I think Senator Graham is dead on. Let's find out why this got to the point going back from July of 2016 on a phony dossier. So I think he's right to get the people in here and question them and see. Let's let them answer some questions. It just didn't turn out like for the last 2.5 years. Didn't turn out like the Democrats wanted. And Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler owe this country an apology because it's not right to convict somebody before they've had their day. They've had their day now, and it just didn't turn out like they thought.
Well, what's really concerning, and it was concerning way back with Richard Nixon, and it's just as concerning now, is whether the FBI was weaponized, whether the powers of the FBI, the powers of the Justice Department, which are incredibly powerful. I mean, you think of their subpoena power, you think of their investigative, or some would say spying power. Those powers were used for political purposes, it seems, by some who were determined to keep Donald Trump out of the White House.
And go back to the beginning, the dossier by Glenn Simpson, and to get a FISA warrant to spy on individual Americans when they didn't check it out. It was never the FBI had the opportunity and the duty to. They set the gold standard for investigations before they make it public. And this has been the most publicized collusion, delusion in the history of this country, which is sad. And it's sad for the American people. And what's been lost in the transition, look at the price tag. If you do the math, whether it's $25 million or $28 million, it comes out to over $50,000 a day. Is that right? The taxpayers shouldn't have to bear that expense. And if Democrats want to keep it going, let it come out of their pocket. Let them pay for it.
Yeah, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but what concerns me more than the money is the fact that the powers of this government, the awesome powers of the United States government, were used for political purposes to spy and overturn an election result. But even before then, of course, before the election is when a lot of this investigation and work by FBI folks who were determined to keep Donald Trump from getting elected were at work. Do you think the Obama administration was at the time somehow involved, because clearly it happened at the Justice Department in part?
Well, if you're going to start looking at things as to why, I think they entered the picture, and it's a question that should be asked, because what happened to Donald Trump, just like you just mentioned about weaponizing the FBI, who sets the gold standard, should not happen, and it should happen to anybody. And as the president said, any president should not have to go through this. So I think hopefully they'll do that.
You know, the president himself has the power to declassify certain things that people would love to get a look at. You mentioned the FISA warrants and exactly what was used to obtain that warrant that was used to spy on an American citizen. The president has the power to declassify. Should he? And why doesn't he?
Absolutely. We voted in Congress 420 to nothing to put the Mueller report out there for the Americans to see. Now, if you roll the clock back and look at the dossier, to declassify that, we didn't get any Democrat votes. When we were down there looking at it, I don't think any Democrats at the time came to even look at it because they knew, I think, deep down where it came from.
Right.
They knew that the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton had something to do with it. But all that is so sad to let it go to this point. 2.5 years later, or over 2 years, with the amount of money, and then to find that there's nothing to it, and to put the American people through that is not right, and it shouldn't happen to anybody else.
You know, Congressman, it was ill-conceived from the beginning. There was no crime. You don't set up a special counselor unless you have a crime, then you investigate the crime. There was no crime. They just opened the investigation to look into this question of Russian collusion without a crime having been committed. Go ahead, quick final word.
Other than Fox, look at the news media that convicted this president before anything was explored. And it's not right. I'm glad it came out like it did. It's a great day for this country.
Congressman Norman, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.